Thank you very much, Quick Shots. I am Medic. I'm joined by Jamada for the first time on an LEC caster desk. Also for the first time in front of a live studio audience.
Hey guys, thank you very much. Happy to be here. Hello everybody. You may or may not remember me from the analyst desk like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Hi.
And you're selling out on your first time at the caster desk.
I am.
Did your clothes just get lost as you flew over here? Yeah, that's
yes.
Okay,
that's what it is.
Actually brought up quite a painful memory.
Yes.
For you, I'm sorry, man. Some of your favorite shirts.
30 seconds in, you're already going at it, huh?
Yeah. It's like the indoctrination, you know. It's like one of those ice baths, you know.
Okay.
People sometimes they lower themselves into it slowly.
Yeah.
But that's actually worse.
No, that is very
Full immersion.
Straight
Full
up.
immersion into the Jamada synergy that we're going to build up.
We'll work on the name.
Medmada?
Medmada?
It's like an armada of medics.
Oh.
Yeah?
Okay.
Apparently the crowd likes that one.
No, we're just into the game.
We are getting ready for our first game of the day. Heretics up against Astralis. Starting now. So, 15 games this weekend at minimum, as we might have tiebreakers at the end of it. Last split, 3 wins and you were in, pretty much, into our group stage. Here, it's looking like you might need 4. And Astralis obviously sitting at 3 and 3. Heretics at 2 and 4. They're going to ban out the Elise and the Sejuani. Draven taken away by Astralis.
Yeah, nothing too out of the ordinary right now from either side. And like you say, I like that you bring it up, because right now, with the standings as they are, realistically, if you're Astralis, you win this game, you're on the probable side of making it into the top 8. And then for Heretics, any win matters when you're at 2 and 4, when you're in that massive clump at the bottom.
Yeah, it's a huge clump down there. 4-way tie for 7th place. Yeah, 7th, 8th, 9th. Yeah, that's how it works. But with the Varus taken away, the Xayah removed as well, alongside that Annie. Heretics looking for their first pick. Could go towards something like the Zeri for Jackspektra. Has been one of his favorites if you want to get an AD carry in early, but Rakan instead. B1 Rakan, something we're seeing a little bit more now in Europe.
Yeah, we definitely are. I feel like a player like JeongHoon and Astralis in the bottom side could definitely punish it with a pretty strong lane matchup, something like Thresh, something like Pyke, something super lane expression-y, as immediately Astralis is going to respond with Maokai Jinx. Jinx we haven't really seen too much of, really, I feel like. So definitely a little bit out there, but seen a little bit of a resurgence of Maokai of late, but we'll see how exactly Team Heretics want to respond. I expect a little more agency again from Jankos. Something like the Vi to pair up with the Rakan, right? Just go straight and full send it. I like the version of Team Heretics where they have a lot more agency, and we know that Jankos has been performing very well, and I feel like giving him that agency when you've already got the Rakan to follow up on that engage makes a whole bunch of sense, and you mentioned that Zeri earlier on, and that's been locked in here.
Yeah, Jackspektra going to his tried and true. Mersa as well, the Rakan his most played across Spring. I wonder where Heretics will go. Jungle is the likely option, as you mentioned, Jamada. Vi, obviously, very high up most people's priority list. But Jankos has been favoring the Wukong, which can still work, gives you backline access. A little bit tricky sometimes into the Maokai, especially when you're going front to back. You have to try and find a bit more of a flank position. Once again, Jankos will pick up the Monkey King.
Yep, I like it though. At the end of the day, Rakan, all about the snap engage, and you can very often catch people off guard in the backline with the Wukong decoy. So that'll be the choice there for Jankos. And I think for Astralis, again, something that can probably just try and lock down the Rakan in the early stages, but also just to follow up on the Maokai engage. Anything is pretty flexible here. Nautilus, Thresh, and it's going to be the Naught here for JeongHoon.
I think Naught also just gives you a lot of damage. Kobbe has been preaching this Emax Nautilus with Aftershock, and I actually really like it. I doubt we'll see JeongHoon go for it here. Usually we see Glacial Augment. Yeah. In Glacial Augment?
Yeah, it's Glacial. Yeah, you got it.
For some reason in my head that one didn't quite sound right. But yeah, we usually see that just for a little bit more utility in team fights. Now, bot side and jungles have been locked in for either team. You can see Astralis want to get rid of a bit of a beefy frontline for Heretics. Ebby didn't have the best Sion performance last week, but he is still a giga tank when you can get him into late game team fights. So Astralis giving a bit of respect over to the undead Juggernaut.
Yeah, you have Maokai, you have Jinx. Chances are you are going to be setting up for frontline and trying to remove some on the opposite side. Definitely not a bad shout either. Leaders Akali going to be removed away out of respect. Wouldn't be surprised to see two sort of mid lane assassin bands get thrown at him just for the sake of it. They are on red side Astralis as well, so they would be very likely to give a counterpick to that Yamaha cannon and set that on the desk as well. Give him that level of freedom. We'll see where they decide to go as Evie gets his Cassandra removed away.
Yeah, Evie, I mean, that's comfort for him, right? Get rid of things that he can just be a tank on, and it makes life a lot easier for Astralis. I think Heretics, if I were Heretics, I'd probably be very much considering an Aurelion Soulbound. Just because, like, Leader is very confident on the champ, but also it gives you so much free scaling. Like, if you can get to a portion in the mid game where you just put down your E and you Q waves, Jinx, even if she's behind, has the time to get to 3-4 items and become this unkillable AD carry in later game fights. Instead, the Azir taken away by Heretics. We'll see where Astralis want to go. Usually mid-blind here into a top lane pick, but Finn could also go for a top lane himself, and that is where he will end up being. The Jacks are locked in for Astralis.
Yeah, two picks that do pretty alright into the Jacks removed off the table as well in that side of that Sion and Cassandra. So I wonder where Evie is actually going to go here with all of those options removed away. For now, at the very least, Team Heretics are considering their mid lane pick. If they've got a draft like this, I'd expect the Cassio to come in. Something like Victor as well could have been a really good option. I would have liked to have seen either of those. Really strong scaling picks with wave clear, a whole bunch of kite back, but now it's all up to Evie and what exactly he wants to go towards. I've seen a surprising amount of Malphite in the last couple of days for some reason, but into the Jacks, pretty strong one-to-one counter. Kennen hasn't been buffed yet, but still on 13.4. I'm very used to the LPL being on 13.5 still, but plenty of options, as you can see hovering through. We will land on the Gragas here, and again, same kind of theme here for Team Heretics. A lot of kite back, a lot of non-committal engage and disengage on all fronts.
And okay. Wow, that is unexpected, I'm gonna be honest. The Zed locked in, have seen it banned a couple of times against Astralis, but Leader going back to his roots. It seems he did an interview this week saying, I'll just play whatever the team needs. It doesn't have to be these melee mid laners, but it seems like when the chips are down, Leader reverts to Zed.
This is just pure comfort zone for Leader, plain and simple. I can't remember the last time I saw a competitive Zed.
We will find out. We have a wonderful stats person called Adea, who I'm sure is already looking up to see when the last Zed mid was in the LEC and when the last time perhaps we saw Leader on it was as well. I will say the last time we saw Ruby on the Cassio was almost 3 months ago. Wow. The first game he played on the LEC stage, was against Heretics, and it was probably the best opening game we've seen from a player in a while. Like, he went 10-3-9, he absolutely dominated, and everything kind of went downhill from there for him. So perhaps he's hoping for a resurgence to that day one play.
Let's see if we can recapture some of that day one performance here into Leader's Zed. It's going to be scary in the lane matchup. We'll see how things shake out as Leader is so happy to always give us these assassin picks and finally gives us a Zed.
We'll talk a little bit more about what he wants to do in this game as we get on into it. Of course, a vital match for both these teams. We have a few ties in the LEC currently. If you tie for 8th place, we do not break it with head-to-head as well, so getting more wins on the board is vital. We think 4 wins will be enough to get you in. See Proxy Fox there in the audience as well, I'm sure cheering on Kobbe as they are getting ready for the game. Looks like we have a slight delay getting into it. But in a moment, we will be ready for the game. Heretics versus Astralis. Let's get ready to rumble. Ebby gonna body slam across the wall here. Heretics won't really find too much because all of Astralis are on the other side of the map. Like, maybe they'll try and body slam up here. Ebby already placed down his ward, means that he'll just have to check with his body. Astralis now working their way down towards the bottom side. 2 teams may meet in their jungle. The question is, do Heretics evacuate the dance floor before any salsa can commence? JeongHoon coming across, will have that hook, can wait on it. Who's your target? It's Ruby. Cassio caught first, and immediately Heretics start to walk away. Flash away by Ruby will get him to safety, but a big summoner burnt there in the mid lane. Yeah,
but look at the timer. No time to reset for Ruby as well, so he's going to have to just chug pots and hope that that's going to be enough, as Astralis are actually just going to turn this into a late invade as well. So a lot of early pressure going to be levied over towards Team Heretics. We'll see how they'll respond and what Jankos wants to do in terms of his pathing, but At the very least, Ruby with no flash now, very vulnerable, right? All 113 has to do is just walk to the mid lane, press flash and W, and he's going to be locked down, and that's going to be a pretty easy cleanup for leader. So Jankos is going to have to definitely sit around that lane a lot and ensure that that setup isn't easy to achieve.
Does mean that Jackspektra and Mersa, they'll get the first push down towards this bottom side. They'll get that wave into the tower. Kobbe will lose X. I think he may have got XP for it, but at least lost the minion. You can see Vedi always points this out, and I'll do so with a circle as well. If you look just here, there's a little purple bar next to each player. That shows how much experience they have in the level. And we can keep a track on exactly how close people are to, you know, getting level 6, getting level 11, these important spikes in the game. I will mention as well, 113, I was worried a little bit, actually. JeongHoon's looking for a fight down towards this bottom side. Mersa going to go back in with a knock-up. JeongHoon is running that Glacial Augment, so not as tanky as you'd be with the Aftershock, but just a little bit of trading. I will mention that 113's gone for the first strike on the Maokai. Something we saw fall out of favor a little bit with the demonic nerfs, but I did wonder in the draft whether Astralis would have enough magic damage really to round out this composition.
Yeah, I feel like if he's gone towards the first strike, we're looking at probably a closer to full AP Maokai come out this game, or at the very least, like you mentioned, the demonic embrace into a couple of tank items. Seen a couple of different variations on that as well. Things like support, but for now, another engage coming in, and 1-3's around.
Puts the sapling down, only I'll have the Bramble smash that Q. Jackspektra trying to get away as well, does have the cleanse, does have the flash, but the flash Bramble smash will pull him back, and Jackspektra dies to the rockets from Kobbe's gun.
Easy setup, and Jackspektra and Mersa a little bit too far forward, get clipped by that dredge line, and first blood is as easy as that. 1-3 gets his first gank off towards the bottom side. Actually, I wanted to point out, he was forced off the red buff because Jackspektra and Mersa had a huge crash at level 1, able to just defend their own red buff, so 113 still stuck around on the bot side for a very long time. Mersa is going to interrupt Kobbe's base timer, so that's going to feel at the very least a little bit better, but all the while Jackspektra still missed out on a huge chunk of CS.
Small mercies when you're sitting 400 gold behind at 4 minutes. We have had some stats come in from Odea. Thank you very much, Odea. Last Z in LEC was Spring 2020 by Perk, so 3 years ago. Leader Z, 76.5% win rate over 17 games in professional play. So expecting good things here from the assassin in the mid lane.
It's pretty alright at that pick, isn't he?
Yeah, it's okay, you know. It's been pretty alright across the course of Spring as well, you know. Topping some of these charts, large gold difference at 14 minutes, leading in terms of CS as well. And a lot of the time he's pressuring the lane, pushing up, getting over that halfway mark of the map, and really allowing his team to start to work around him.
Yeah, and that's what leaders always kind of been known for when, you know, you talk about the far back history, ERLs, things like that. Dominating laning phases with these assassin picks and seeing him come into Astralis and kind of bring that level of stability to the mid lane, something that they are definitely lacking last split. Very nice to see as JeongHoon, no flash, maybe caught out, but with the support of the rest of Astralis, should be able to walk out that one.
JeongHoon's level 2, man. Like, it's just like, nah, we need to get vision control around mid. Maybe we can look for a gank. The wave's pushing in. Maybe they dive leader, although perhaps not the best of ideas. Trying to dive his head is something we've seen JeongHoon do a lot, actually, is get out of his lane, get around the map. He has the lowest proximity to his bot lane of any support in the LEC, and then also the highest proximity to his mid laner and the highest proximity to his opposing jungler as well. And a lot of the time, JeongHoon is a key cog in the machine of Astralis' early game.
Yeah, and it all starts to make sense as well when you think about how leader tends to dominate mid lane, like we was talking about a second ago. So having the jungle procs be so high, the mid lane procs be so high, just means they're setting up around the mid lane constantly, and that can translate into neutrals stacking very, very early on as well. We'll see if that will be the case here for Astralis, as they are potentially eyeing up another bot side gank, because Jankos was waiting around for it as well. It looks like it could be a bit of a pass-by.
I think there was a ward in that bush. I saw 113 clearing it out, maybe being just hovered over by another ward. So for the moment, Jackspektra and Mersa safe from any further attention, at least, from 113. 113 will start up the Hex Drake, though early Dragon from them. 6 minutes on the clock. You get this, you start that Dragon Soul sacking. It makes it a lot harder for Heretics to get back into the game in the mid game when perhaps their champions have a little bit more agency.
Yes, and this is also a little bit of a roll-on effect from the level 1 where Ruby, having no flashes, kind of had to yield a lot of the pressure over to leader. Typically in the Cassio lane, you would expect her to probably have shove. It's just the nature of a lot of range versus melee matchups, but with no flash and having to respect where 1-3 could be consistently, it means that Astralis are very easily able to pick up the first dragon of the game, because as you can see here, leader first move on map.
To get out and around. Ruby still only just got his flash back up from that initial play, so always had to be a little bit safer in that mid lane. Honors even though, CS even between the two of them. Leader got a back, went serrated Dirk first. little bit more lethality for that Zed. And we haven't really had a chance to talk about it too much, but just extol to me the virtues of Zed in this composition, because it's such a champion, like such an odd champion to see, but it is a leader speciality.
You know, it is a little bit strange. I feel like Mersa's probably going to dash out that one quite comfortably. Yeah, Zed, it feels like we haven't seen him in a very long time, and typically back in the day, you would often see him in sort of like 1-3-1 compositions and very much not really playing for straight up team fights, or if you are, you're coming on a flank angle. At the very least here in this inside of this lane, what it's doing is kind of just keeping Ruby on his toes, making sure he's never really overstepping, because the leader will definitely punish him. He's very comfortable, we know that. And speaking of punishes, Jankos could get caught out.
It's good use of the decoy into the flash to make sure that he could escape from the flash counter-strike there by Finn. But once again, it's Astralis teaming up, using mid-prio, exactly what you talked about, Jamada. JeongHoon coming across as well on his reset to make sure that Jankos does not have a fun time. And so often, Heretics' success, well, the two of them they've had this split, has been based around Jankos being ahead, Jankos being in a position to engage, to find these fights. And now, yes, he's still on as even with 1-1-3, but Astralis will take that because their bot lane's ahead. They have a strong assassin in the mid lane, and although Finn is falling a little bit behind, that's kind of to be expected in the Jax versus Gragas matchup early on.
Yeah, exactly. I will say the counterpoint here for Astralis is the 5v5s, or rather for Team Heretics, the 5v5 composition definitely kind of has to favor them in a way, right? You've got Jax and Zed on one side. They definitely look more to the side lanes often in a lot of situations like this. So Team Heretics always have the option of, you know, quickness and a grand entrance with a Wukong going in and trying to find the backline, trying to find Kobbe. I just do fear that even if they do take down Kobbe, will leader be able to immediately still, in response, assassinate Jackspektra? Will Finn always have backline access? These are the questions we're going to have to continually track throughout the rest of the game.
And a difficulty for leader in that situation is Jackspektra can just go a more tanky AD carry build. You know, Immortal Shield Bow, Bloodthirster is something we're seeing quite often from AD carries, and it makes it a lot harder when you have overheal shield. I'm going to assume as we bring up the rune page, he has overheal, so he's going to have an even bigger shield on top of that Bloodthirster. He's
even got resolve with conditioning and overgrowth. You know, man, it's almost if it, you know, some people call like shield bow, it's basically the AD carry tank item, isn't it? Like, it's a little bit obnoxious sometimes, but it's going to make perfect sense here into effectively two champions that want to dive on your face and try and murder you very quickly.
It's going to be about whether Jackspektra can survive through the dive that Astralis can put out. Jankos once again finds his jungle invaded by a cat tree in the form of 1-1-3. He did walk over a control ward here. There's TP available for no one. And because of that, Jackspektra and Mersa realize they want to get out of here. Lickety split. Kobbe will get a third plate down towards this bottom side. And all of this is just about denying Jackspektra and Mersa. They're not looking for a dive. If one presented itself to them, sure, we'll go for it. But you don't really need to force the advantage so much as Astralis. Instead, take these incremental gains, take these incremental wins. And because of that, Kobbe's 1,000 gold ahead.
Yeah, I feel like this is generally a good read from Astralis as well. Because to me, Team Heretics have looked the best in two kinds of situations. Compositions like this, where you've got Jankos and Mersa together on two agency champions, where they can actually make things happen in the mid game. But then also when Jackspektra, it doesn't happen often these days, but gets an early game leader, at the very least has a bit of a foothold to move into in the mid game, and it feels like Astralis' whole game plan has effectively just rotated around that, shutting down Jankos, constantly tracking and making sure he's not getting any access to any lane, whilst also simultaneously denying a whole bunch of resources to Jackspektra.
And the reason you want to shut down Jankos is because of how good he has been so far this winter. Up in probably most people's estimations as one of the best junglers, if not the best jungler, when you look at relative to team strength. High gold difference at 14 minutes, involved in a lot of action in the early game, and doesn't actually have to spend too much time around his team to do it. That team proximity, very low, 8th place, but he's so effective at finding windows to punish and then going back to getting himself personal advantages.
Yeah, I feel like people almost to a point forgot how good Jankos was because he had G2 around him for so long.
I mean, that's a compliment up until 2021.
But at the end of the day, right, Jankos still doing what we know him to do, right? Regardless of how Heretics as a whole have been going so far throughout the year, as 1-3 just about revealed himself on Vision.
And even this game, he's 23 CS up, right?
He's doing a good job.
All we've done is talk about how well Astralis are pinning Jankos back, making sure he can't find ganks, and he hasn't found any kills, and he hasn't found any assists, but he is still able to get a 500 gold lead in isolation by himself. However, second dragon in the game now for Astralis. You can see they've really put priority on making sure they can get these early drakes, using the push in mid, using the push in bot, and we'll see what Soul is the prize at the end of this. It's going to be an Inferno, so a good soul as well, especially on a Zed, actually. The amount of extra bursts and the saplings from 113.
Yep.
It's going to be pretty deadly. Jankos working his way down towards this bottom side. Did pick up the Rift Herald earlier on. There's a control ward in there. Hasn't spotted him as of yet, and now will, of course, as he steps further forward. Putting more gold into Jackspektra's pockets, obviously a benefit for the team in the long run. But it's definitely not going to be a full tower that falls here. 113 might even look for the Nature's Grasp. Jankos, I can hear him starting to shout, perhaps looking for something. JeongHoon gets the engage, though there's the Nature's Grasp as well. Cyclone used, Jankos already low, and he falls for the first time this game as Astralis look to get a little bit more. The quickness coming out, Mersa with the knock-up as well. JeongHoon low, Jackspektra gets one in response, a 1-for-1 trade. Perhaps more than Astralis were bargaining for down towards the bottom lane.
Bite off a little bit more than they can chew, but they stop any more plates than what could have initially gone down outside of the first charge, as leader as well just kind of chaperoning Ruby away from potentially roaming down towards the bottom side. But a good response from Astralis to stop the Herald charge. Team Heretics, you understand as well, I think the Herald was just about to time out, so they just wanted some gold, and Jankos is punished for the play.
I mean, also, where else are you going to use it, right? You can't find a gank anywhere on the map right now. Ebby's been pushing in, but he hasn't been able to take a plate here in the top side. Mid lane has always been pushed into Ruby, it seems. So it's just been a bit of a struggle for Jankos to find an effective way to use it. They do get the plates, and we'll have another look at this engage from JeongHoon.
Yeah, so it's just an engage from JeongHoon. You said it. It's pretty much just that. 1-on-3, presses Zaki, Jankos, locked down, can't move. I don't even know if he gets to really decoy. I think he just dies in the CC. That's very fun, isn't it? And like we say, JeongHoon just flashes forward, does get Jackspektra's cleanse, but unfortunately gives over his life for it. So we'll see whether or not that can necessarily be punished. Not Dredge Line, the ultimate from the Nautilus will still very much come through and be committed whenever it needs to be. But there you go, Kobbe gets first tower blood off the back of the Herald charge. He happily walks away to the bank.
It's a 1,000 gold lead at around the 14-minute mark for Astralis. 2 dragons to the good as well is something we do have to keep our eyes on. 3 minutes before that next Drake does spawn, and obviously both these teams fighting for one of our top 8 spots. You can see Astralis a win in 95% of scenarios they would be in, so that's if we assume 50-50 odds for every other game throughout the course of the weekend. In 95% of those scenarios, Astralis make it in with a win as the rocket stops Jackspektra's back. Heretics have a little bit more of a road to climb, but it is possible if they can pick up 1 win of the next 3, in which they are facing Vitality, XL, and Astralis. Maybe Heretics can get to that 4-win mark. It's a bit of an uphill road, especially with Vitality there. Really, the question is, what XL are we going to get on day 3 of this weekend? Yeah,
exactly. We don't know how XL are going to look now that they've got Abadaga in the mid lane. We'll see how things shake out for the weekend for them as a whole, of course. But that is probably going to be the biggest game for Team Heretics, if you had to wager a guess. But game in front of them right now, not sitting too pretty at the moment. Down 1,000 gold, down 2 dragons. And it looks like the next point of focus is going to be the Herald.
I think importantly as well, we have looked at things through quite an Astralis-focused lens.
Yep.
For Heretics, it's not an awful situation. It's not great. You're 1,000 gold behind, you're 2 dragons behind, but their team fight, their composition works really well when we get to those 5v5s. If they can find a way for Jankos to get onto the back line, Kobbe might just die where he stands.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, Team Heretics composition, it thrives in death falling, and they might just quit out Leader here.
Leader's going to try and jump away, goes back in with a death mark. Dredge Line coming out, Leader ignited, he'll tick down and he will fall. Jankos takes him with the red buff. Rift held on the menu. Ebby coming in from the side as well, and 113 gonna have to burn that flash. A good hook though from JeongHoon. Finn gets onto the back line. Kobbe trying to open up. The lightning crash coming in from Jackspektra as he dives on towards the back line. 1-for-1 so far in this fight, but Kobbe just has so much damage. Is that Jinx from Arcane? He's bat-chesting everywhere. Astralis going forward, and Mersa locked up, taken down. Another hook connects. Jankos trying to turn it back around. It's a double for Ruby, but Kobbe still standing strong, still alive. And in the end, it's a 3-for-3.
3-for-3 in the extended trade. No one's going to pick up the Herald for now, but it is 1-1-3 that is still up on the map. I feel like it's just going to be a reset and another dance around that Herald. But it all starts off with that pick towards Leader. I think Leader just rotating down into the river, just trying to maybe get a little bit of extra information, just meet up with his team. To be honest with you, but Jankos, Mersa, this is what I'm speaking about. I feel like Team Heretics always look the best when you've got these 2 unengaged champions in unison. Leader just biting off a little more than he could chew. I feel like he was probably out, but his flash was just off cooldown, so I felt like he had the death mark to try and survive as the re-engage comes in here from Ebby. Dredge Line interrupts it from JeongHoon, and the back line getting dove immediately by Finn as Jackspektra as well, just trying to get as much damage out as he can. But you can kind of see Team Heretics, they do quite well when they're all stacked up together, but they start to get out of range by Kobbe with the rockets, with lethal tempo. The AoE starts to take over. as the chase comes in, and eventually we do get a couple more kills back and forth. But it's Ruby that's the big beneficiary of a lot of those kills, so we'll see whether or not he can continue to potentially take over the next team fight.
You can see just the damage that Kobbe's already putting out on that Jinx. Had a lot of time to open up, no real threat on him. Heretics, instead of dancing around the Herald, will take a battle in the bot side river, it seems. Infernal Drake already spitting fire at Astralis. 113 started it up. Jankos going in. The Cyclone used as well. JeongHoon already down. Mersa on the backline as well, just distracting everyone. 113 dives back in. Jankos gets the smite, because of course he does. The Go jungler of the West as the rocket comes out, but Mersa tanks it. Leader going forward. Death mark onto Ebby. There's one. Mersa getting chased by Finn, getting to the blast cone. Can't get there in time. Does, in fact, just escape. Kobbe going forward once again. Ruby able to escape with a sliver of HP. Slithers his way to safety. In the end, it's Jankos who secures the smite. Finn, no flash on him, but the counter-striker possibility. Tanks a tower shot. Ruby's back delayed, but his life still very much in his own hands. Zap used by Kobbe. It will just be a tower. Jackspektra cannot stand versus the two. And for the moment, Astralis, even though they don't get the dragon, do extend their lead to 3K.
They extend their lead, but I feel like Team Heretics are probably going to be very happy about that one. Stopping the soul point being collected there for Astralis now just buys them so much extra breathing room to give Ruby the space he might need to navigate some of these team fights, as the engage was kind of on two fronts here. It was JeongHoon, and then there was also Mersa on the backside. Jankos almost gets one shot. Fortunately, I think a bunch of Divines and Sunder healing is what keeps him alive in the extended as the smite comes in. 9 HP. That's what that gets taken down as eventually Team Heretics just forced to retreat. Look at all the AoE damage. Kobbe is doing 2 fights back to back as chase down is on, and no one from Heretics can really survive except for Mersa. Just about hops out.
Mersa gets out. Jackspektra and Ruby also escape. In the end, a 2-for-1 across the board. And you can see how close these fights can be. Remember, Astralis, a pretty sizable lead. 2 items completed on Kobbe. Coming into this next fight, Mersa and Heretics will back away from the Rift Herald. Astralis get one of the neutrals at least, but as you say, Heretics will be very happy with the fact they've managed to delay this game. You can see Ebby, Rod of Ages stacking up, Ruby the same. Jackspektra still only sitting at 1 item. If he can get to 2, if he can get to 3, it becomes a much harder road for Astralis to find these fights, to find these flanks that really help them out.
Yeah, I feel like Astralis at the moment on this particular breakpoint would be pretty happy to force a couple of fights. So many key item breakpoints still not met quite yet for Team Heretics. Archangels, second item for Jackspektra, whatever that may be. So we'll see whether or not they actually end up forcing. I feel like, though, for Team Heretics, still in a comfortable enough position. I feel like, though, if we get another team fight like what we just saw, where Mersa's going on the backline, it needs to be followed up. That's kind of the key thing. You've got Wukong, you've got Rakan. You want that engage to be stacked on top of each other. And I feel like that's just going to be the thing we're going to have to track for Team Heretics here.
It's also that ebb and flow of, is it better at this point in the game and in that last fight for Mersa just to distract the entire enemy backline, right? Yeah. Like, it gives Jankos some time to try and secure the Drake. It gives Jackspektra some time to work through whoever's standing on top of him at the moment. And it's one of those things with Rakan where, obviously I'm going to wax poetic about Rakan.
Oh, of course, brother, go ahead.
He's really strong at the moment, not only because his laning phase is being shored up by the Q buffs, but also because you can both be a nuisance and you can be a terror, right? A nuisance is where you're just distracting a few people. You jump onto the backline, you make the AD carry burn his cleanse, his flash to get away, he uses Gale Force. Meanwhile, your AD carry is just saying, okay, cool, run at me, I've got 3 tanks in front of me, or 2 tanks and an AP carry, I can work my way through you. And then the Rakan also provides that safety of diving in with the entire team and locking people up as the AD carry goes front to back. So we'll see if Mersa is a nuisance. We'll see if he's a terror. I actually think his best game this split was on Rakan. It was a game they lost, I think. I can't remember who it was against, but he had some incredible flanks in the late game, and that's what Heretics often need in late game fights, is someone who can find a bit of creativity, that little bit of secret sauce, you know?
Yeah.
The magic, what was it? Magic water from Space Jam. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, God.
Michael's special.
You know, I think you forget, that film came out before I was born, Medic. I think Space Jam.
Really?
I think because it came out in the 90s, right? It was like 98.
I mean, probably.
So I'm a 99 baby, so I think it came out. I know.
Are people allowed to be born in 1999? I'm pretty sure that's against the Geneva Convention or something.
But I will say, you are definitely right. I think the more that I kind of theorize about Team Heretics' composition, whilst they also want to, like, it's kind of weird, because you want to try and find flanks, yes, when you've got a Wukong and a Rakan, but if you try to look for those flanks, you then immediately kind of abandon your backline to a point to allow Leader and Finn to maybe find access. So I think the key thing is trying to maybe get in front of the objective first. The issue is with Kobbe so far ahead, he's consistently getting mid lane shove, and it means that Astralis are the ones that set up vision, and it's always Team Heretics that have to walk in second.
For the moment, it's all about this next Drake, it seems, Jamada. Last time, the fight kind of went in Astralis' favor, but the Drake, the objective at least, was secured for Heretics. Jankos once again looking to take the long way around, trying to find a way to sneak his way around here. Oh, fast side alteration will spot him. Didn't spot Ruby, importantly. Jankos will walk up here, pops the Scryer's Bloom, but doesn't take the ward. Now, there is a possibility that Astralis say, well, screw the Dragon, we don't really need it. We have enough damage to take away the Baron. Now, Dragon taken by Heretics. Baron already started. Finn still pushing in that top lane by himself. Heretics on their way there. Evie coming in as well.
I think it's
but that Baron already down to 5,000 HP. As you say, Jamada, it's a long walk for Heretics, and Astralis under their noses steal away the Baron.
Yeah, Team Heretics kind of duped there. I mean, it's a permanent buff versus a temporary buff, but Astralis, with the lead that they have right now, very happy to do that, and they're actually just kind of taking a trade. Yeah, they're just going for another trade here on the map. Looking for more. They should be able to actually crack open the base. I think the resets are going to be super slow, and they're not even going to reset. They're just going to walk to this side lane fight instead. So Finn and Kobbe should take this down, but it's about what Team Heretics can maybe, or they won't, but what they can maybe get from this.
Importantly for Astralis, they put vision down as they walked through this topside jungle, which means that Jankos is on a control ward. He could have found a flank, but Astralis were able to keep wise of where Heretics were. They are still chasing, as you say, just making sure they have to take the slow way home. They'll do exactly that. Oh, JeongHoon. Ruby trying to get over the wall there perhaps, but didn't quite manage to. Astralis still going to end up just channeling these resets. Go back to base with the Baron buff. Now 2 minutes remaining on it. They have a 5,000 gold lead. 2.5 items finished on Leader. This Zed has been relatively quiet so far this game. He had consistently got the push on Ruby in the mid lane, giving him credit there, and obviously it's been a while since we've seen a Zed, so maybe this is exactly what you're meant to do, and you just, in late game team fights, start absolutely blowing everyone up. Went Black Cleaver after the Eclipse for a little bit more armor shred. No real surprises there. Perhaps a little surprise for some people, though, as 113 went Mandate second on the Maokai here. Gives your team a bit more magic damage, because of course the proc off it is magic damage for the Jinx. And after Demonic, I guess 113 is like, I don't really need too much more damage. I'll get all of the old support items, you know, Mandate, get the Oblivion Orb. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I will actually say it's a very interesting take, right? I mentioned earlier we've seen a couple of pros out on the LPL try out the kind of supported Maokai build, like Redemption and Moonstone, things like that. Definitely a slightly different take on it, and it's still going to do a whole bunch of damage, right? If someone gets rooted up, CC, I mean, all of Maokai's kit is CC, so he's proccing Mandate on everything.
Exactly.
It's always a little bit of extra damage, so you can't really go wrong.
The only other option is, and I think we've explained why Mandate will work well, so I'm going to make a joke here.
Sure.
Maybe a lot of people will be playing Maokai support, so the suggested items are actually Maokai support items. And 113's just, you know, rapidly right-click through.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Mandate Oblivion Orb, of course.
He's like every coach's nightmare, just hitting whatever the recommended item is.
Don't you do that? I do that all the time. And you're going to try and deal with Leader in the side lane here. This is, as you said earlier on, Jamada, exactly where Zed can do a lot of work. Depth charge going on to Ruby. He has the Guardian as well. The charm coming out as Finn has to flash away. Mersa tanking a lot of damage here. Kobbe's going to get excited as he gets that passive up on the Jinx. Jackspektra so tanky though with that shield. The overhill doing work, but in the end it's a 1-0 in favor of Astralis. And with the Baron buff pushing in, Astralis will take a tower, their 5th of the game.
Astralis is just balling around Kobbe. He's got so much range in comparison to what Team Heretics can really offer at this stage in the game, or really at any point in the game. And he's able to just constantly get so much AoE out. Team Heretics, it looks like they're just going to try and commit towards Leader. Leader willing it out.
Death mark, knocked back. Miasma short though, so Leader can still flash. They're on the chase. Leader dashes away with a Living Shadow, but the barrel will find him. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, Astralis take their first inhibitor of the game and continue their 7,000 gold advantage. TP for Evie a possibility, but with no flash and no barrel,
there's a good.
I think he won't use it. There is a ward, as you say, that was pinged out. And in the end, it looks like Heretics do not want to force the matter any further.
Yeah, there were a good couple of wards, but it seems like Team Heretics didn't really want to force the issues, so Leader gives over his life, but I think he's going to be dying smiling, getting the inhib for his team. So Astralis now have that point of pressure to work with for
and it's not,
the Dragon.
It's not only the inhib, it's also the top inhib tower, because that makes it so much easier to push in for that inhib in the future. You don't actually have to care about whether you've got a minion wave there, although I'm sure Finn will try and help his minions march down that top lane pretty rapidly. For the moment, though, I think we are looking at one of the two key carries for Heretics through the rest of the game. Jackspektra on this Zeri has been one of his favorite picks across the course of the split, and there have been a few moments of brightness from him, a few shining lights in the darkness of some of these games for Heretics where Jackspektra has popped off and he has had good performances. It's just a bit of inconsistency, it seems, as the Gale Force away from Kobbe means that Ebby's explosive cast doesn't really get them too much.
Yeah, Jackspektra had the privilege of following his career quite closely at times, EM, ERLs, and it often feels like he is that little bit of, you know, hope for a lot of teams. We'll see whether or not he can do it here for Team Heretics. He's at 2.5 items. He is still trailing on Kobbe, as you would expect, as that's a dredge line, but Jankos will decoy away. And again, it's Astralis who are here first. This is kind of a bit of an issue for Team Heretics. If the engage comes in and they can stick together, then maybe they can find a little bit of success. You can see Leader hanging out on the side. It seems like Team Heretics want the flank angle instead, but this Dragon is being burned down. Astralis are just going for the kill.
I think this one might just be given up. Jankos blast code in there. It's going to use the decoy to get away. Nature's Gas coming out as well, but they can all just dash back. But Jankos still gets rooted by it. And Leader across the wall just absolutely murks him. A good petrifying gaze, but the heal onto JeongHoon will keep him alive. Jackspektra trying to get away from Finn, but with a counter strike, Finn can just dash and dive onto him. The cleanse away. Ebby gets a good knockup, but look at the damage coming out from Astralis. The chase continues. Mersa dives in, but immediately dies. It's a triple. Kobbe steals the quadra, and Ebby can only lick his wounds as he's chased away by the Jinx. A lot of people have been on the receiving end of those rockets, and they are not a pretty thing to feel. Astralis may just look to end the game here. Only Ebby survives 13 seconds on Jankos, and Heretics are going to have to wait another day to get the third win that might secure themselves a spot in playoffs. In 95% of scenarios now, Astralis have made it to the group stage.
Astralis get their 4th win and take down Team Heretics. And it was in clean fashion as well. Yeah. It has to be said. That was a very, very disciplined game, Medic, from the Astralis side. And it felt like from start to finish, they came in with a game plan. Shut down Jackspektra, shut down Jankos, not allow him to find access to any of the lanes. And it felt like Team Heretics were kind of muted by that game plan. Really, really solid mid-game as well in those team fights. All round, very, very positive for Astralis.
Yeah, really good performance by them. They go to 4-3, which, as we've said a few times, seems like it will at least be the lower end of the benchmark. It's very, very unlikely that you get 4 wins and you don't make it to groups. Of course, 2nd groups in a row for Astralis. A great performance from them, especially considering coming into the year, a lot of people would have put them at the bottom of the table. Oh wow, that was rude, Finn. You give Jamada a fist bump, you don't give me a fist bump? What is this?
You're a random, brother. That's what it is now.
It's true. It's true. He did try and give me a long range one.
He did, yeah.
Not to throw him under the bus.
No.
Too much, but yeah, good performance all round by Astralis. I think Kobbe and JeongHoon continue to show us that they are one of the best bot lanes in the LEC. Obviously, this game was a lot more about Leader pushing through mid and then using that pressure to expand over the rest of the map. But it shows in the past, I think, you could have put your eggs in the Kobbe basket and sometimes you would have been disappointed at the end of the game. Now it seems like the trend is, if you put resources into Kobbe, he will carry the game. He will put you in a position where you can win late game team fights. And he is one of your player of the game votes at LEC on Twitter. Him alongside 113 and JeongHoon. So that's Kobbe, 113 and JeongHoon as your options. And yeah, I think any of the 3 I could give it to.
Yeah, I feel like, yeah, it's probably going to be Kobbe if I had to, if I had to wager a guess. But I feel like 113 and JeongHoon specifically set up a lot of the team fighting. They were on the Engage champions after all. And they did effectively give Kobbe his early lead as well as just the map play plan that they had. So really well good job, Astralis. Very impressed.
Oh, so am I, and I'm very impressed with you.
Oh, thank you.
Just to give you a bit of credit, you know, it's not easy to cast in front of a studio audience. You did a great job. It was a very fun first cast. Any notes for me? Any feedback before we? Because we're setting up for an interview and we have to just fill some time now.
I am very surprised that you didn't haze me more than I was expecting. But you have another game for that.
I do.
So, oh, boy.
And that one's online as well, so maybe we'll have pauses.
Oh, why have you said the P word?
We've already had one. We had a delay at the start of the first game of the day. It's the LEC. We're going to hand it over to Frankie, who is standing by with the victorious Jinx. It's Kobbe.
Thank you very much, guys. Hello, Berlin. What a lovely match to kick things off. At least a lovely result for you, Kobbe. You've had such a fantastic split so far. How does it feel within the team as we head into these all-important final matches of the best of ones?
There's definitely a lot of stress, I think, in general, but team atmosphere has been a lot better this split, so that helps a lot going through it. And I think our schedule for this week is also like looking pretty doable. So we just try to do our best, like play our game, and I'm sure we're gonna win most of our games this weekend.
Tell me about the draft then. Obviously, Zed is the key talking point here. I'm guessing that was Leader's idea?
Yeah, it's a champion. He plays well. I think it fit here. I'm not a set main, so I'm not really sure when it's good to pick, but I trust him. He's good in the champ, so yeah.
Tell me how those drafting discussions go, though. Is it a case of you all bringing what you want to play into that pre-match discussion, or does AOD lay down the line?
I mean, it's kind of funny. If you want the honest answer, we talked for so many hours about draft for this weekend. A lot of arguments and a lot of going back and forth, so it's definitely not easy. Even though in the end, I think it's kind of simple. We had our bands prepared early in the week, we practiced, but a lot of hours of discussion, and I'm kind of mentally exhausted from doing that, so this week.
Well, I feel guilty for putting you under the mental exhaustion of this interview right now, but I do want to ask, have you ever had any so-called troll picks that you've been denied on stage? Because you're so consistent and chill that I can't see it from you, but I'm kind of curious.
No, I think if I have something I believe is good, then I play it, and I'm allowed to play it. Like you've seen, I played some Cassiopeia last split, which didn't turn out too great. Sometimes I think I played Vega as well. That was not my fault though, but we lost that game. But yeah, there's a lot of freedom for all of us to just play what we want and what we think is good.
And how about freedom in the bot lane? Obviously, you've been playing with JeongHoon for well over a year now. In terms of that relationship, you're often finding yourself playing 1v1 in that bot lane. Does JeongHoon just go, I fancy helping out up top right now, and you just let him go?
It depends a lot on game state. Like I think we're really strong in the 2v2, but usually on stage games they're slower, and there's just a lot of farming. Enemy team doesn't want to fight that much, so we just push the wave. He gets the first move to Herald. My team is fighting for Herald 4v4, and I'm just farming. So I think that's also, it's kind of the difference between scrims and stage games, because the games here, like the one right now, was very slow. So I think that's probably why.
What do you prefer? Last year, it was all about those late-game team fights. Obviously, a very different lineup apart from the bot lane right now. But now you're snowballing the early game when you can, apart from obviously today, slower game. What would you prefer the pace to be?
Well, as an AD carry, I would like to, like this game, I would like to get my 3 items and do some damage in the fights. So I'm happy about that, but I also don't think it's a really tough question, honestly. A mix of both, you know? Like, I want a stable early game, and then, like, today is fun for me. Like, I think we could have ended the game a bit faster, but I knew the whole time with my champion that we're probably going to win in the end if I'm strong.
And at the end of the day, the win's the win, right? That's the most important thing. I want to ask about who you expect to make the top 8. It's such a strange weekend. Anything could happen. At the moment, you have got some very good matchups. But what about some of the teams who are fighting for their lives at the bottom of the standings right now? We've got Mad Lions, Fnatic, we've got XL, and Team Heretics.
Well, honestly, I'm not too sure about the standings. Like, I haven't looked close into it, but...
well, how about?
And like schedule,
yeah,
like who the different teams are gonna play. But teams like Mad Lions, even if their standings are not that great, I still think they should make it through.
You believe they'll take it over Fnatic?
Probably, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your predictions, Kobbe, and congratulations on the win today. Good luck with the rest of the weekend. Perhaps we'll be seeing you in week 4. Right now, though, we need to take a break, and after it, I'll be joined by XL's newest recruit, Abadagi, ahead of his game against Koi. See you then.
Level 5, we can win this.
Wukong pass.
Okay, look, Cassio.
Zeri no flash, Gragas no flash.
Here we go more.
Cassio has ult.
Cassio, I think she ulted. I can jump here.
Yeah. Cassiopeia and Jax.
Flash or no?
And
Gale force on 2. Gale force on 2.
I can't.
Chang.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, Chang.
I can move on this. I can move on this, guys.
One dead.
I have really good position here.
I'm stunned.
Kill him.
That's fine.
I can go
kill
here.
him.
Go,
Keep
go,
going,
go,
keep going,
go,
keep
go,
going.
go. I can. Okay,
Run
go,
fire.
go, go.
Yeah.
We can end.
Nice, guys. Reset.
Hey, go bot, game over.
Penta!
It's fine. Let's go on this.